Analyst takes subtle dig at Baker Mayfield after Shedeur Sanders goes viral for checking renowned Critic. Local reporters often get criticized for being too harsh on the teams they cover, especially those covering the Cleveland Browns. ESPN Cleveland's Tony Grossi is one of them, having reported on the Browns since 1984 and witnessed season after season of losing. Grossi's negativity has annoyed players, such as former Cleveland QB Baker Mayfield, in the past. However, after rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders spoke calmly to Grossi about his criticism, one analyst observed how Mayfield handled similar situations during his time as the Browns' leader. Analyst takes subtle shot at Baker Mayfield after Shedeur Sanders handles Critic calmly. Mayfield's feud with Grossi was well documented during his time as the Browns' quarterback in Cleveland. The two often clashed, producing plenty of viral moments, including one where Mayfield called one of Grossi's questions the dumbest you could ask. Grossi was highly critical of Mayfield during his time with the Browns, and he has taken a similar tone towards Sanders, who Cleveland selected in the 5th round of the 2025 NFL Draft. The son of NFL Hall of Famer Deion Sanders. The young quarterback faces high expectations, with many fans eager to see him play. That hype has clearly frustrated Grossi during training camp, as he has repeatedly argued that Sanders is not yet ready to be an NFL quarterback and has tried to slow down the excitement. Despite Grossi and other critics, Sanders had an impressive NFL preseason debut against the Panthers on Friday, throwing for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. After the game, Sanders ran into Grossi in the team's tunnel and calmly asked why Grossi was so critical of him in a moment that quickly went viral. The clear difference between Sanders' calm approach and Mayfield's brash reaction to Grossi's criticism didn't go unnoticed. Robert Littal, host of the Headline King podcast, pointed out the contrast and took a jab at how Mayfield handled Grossi during his time in Cleveland. Grossi has been like this for 30 years. Baker couldn't handle it, Littal wrote. Shedeur disarmed him in 60 seconds and changed his energy. That's a gift not all people have for negative people. Littal isn't wrong about the difference, but it's not that Mayfield couldn't handle the criticism. Instead, he wasn't afraid to go back and forth with Grossi. Mayfield has always had a chip on his shoulder and never shied away from confrontations. While Little's claim that Mayfield couldn't handle it may not be the best choice of words, Sanders clearly responded to Grossi's criticism with more grace. Sanders has a lot to prove, and criticism from local reporters is never easy to deal with. Still, early in his NFL career, the young quarterback is showing he can take the high road and speak calmly with media members face-to-face, instead of escalating the situation like Mayfield sometimes did. It started with a clip that had nothing to do with Baker Mayfield, at least not on the surface. Shedeur Sanders, the rookie Cleveland Browns quarterback who'd already turned the preseason into his personal highlight reel, was in the middle of a post-game press scrum. His team had just wrapped a win, and a veteran NFL reporter, one known for taking sharp jabs at young quarterbacks, lobbed a question wrapped in skepticism. The phrasing was blunt. That was one game. How do you plan to handle it when the defenses figure you out? Shedeur didn't blink. With a half smile and a voice steady enough to make the entire locker room lean in, he said, "They've been figuring me out my whole life. I'm still here." He tapped his chest twice, as if punctuating the point, and moved on to the next question. The moment went viral within hours. The clip that sparked a wave. On social media, fans dissected every micro-expression. Some saw quiet confidence. Others saw a rookie delivering a mic drop without raising his voice. Either way, the tone was clear. Sanders wasn't here to be minimized. By Monday morning, ESPN's morning shows were replaying the clip alongside his preseason highlights. But it was on a different network, FS1's Speak, where things took an unexpected turn. The subtle dig. During a segment on quarterbacks with the right mindset, former NFL player turned analyst Jordan Palmer was breaking down Sanders' composure when he made an eyebrow-raising comparison. "This is the kind of answer," Palmer said, "that builds respect in a locker room. You get a tough question, you don't flinch, you don't make it about you being offended, you keep it about the game. Some guys in this league, and I'm not naming names, have let moments like that spiral into something personal. They turn it into a feud. They start calling out critics in interviews, and before you know it, the focus is off football." Then came the smile. The kind of smile that tells the audience, you know exactly who I'm talking about. It didn't take long for Twitter to fill in the blanks. Baker's shade trended within the hour. Why the connection was immediate. Baker Mayfield's history with critics, and the media at large, is well documented. Whether it was clapping back at Colin Cowherd on live television or calling out reporters for unfair questions, Mayfield's fiery personality has been both a trademark and a lightning rod. And Palmer, who once worked closely with young quarterbacks in off-season training camps, knew how those reactions could ripple through a team. Sanders' calm, measured response was, in Palmer's framing, the opposite approach. A subtle suggestion that maybe Cleveland had found a quarterback who didn't let criticism turn into a weeks-long narrative. Fans connect the dots. The comparison practically wrote itself. Within hours, side-by-side clips surfaced on TikTok. On the left, Sanders leaning into the mic. "They've been figuring me out my whole life. I'm still here." On the right, a montage of Mayfield interviews where he bristled at questions, sometimes leaving the podium early. The caption read, "Different eras. Different energy." Browns fans, still split on how the franchise handled the end of Mayfield's tenure, debated whether the dig was fair. But even some of Baker's staunchest defenders admitted Sanders' answer had a poise to it that resonated. Inside the locker room, privately, several Browns players reportedly loved the way Sanders handled the critic. One veteran lineman told a Cleveland radio station, "That's the kind of response that shuts down the noise." He didn't give them a headline, well, not the headline they wanted. He gave the team something to rally around instead. Sanders himself stayed out of the swirl. When asked later in the week if he'd seen the analyst's comments, he shrugged. "I'm just here to play. I don't compare myself to anybody. I've got a lot to prove before I'm even in that conversation." It was a deft sidestep, the kind of non-answer that still managed to fuel the conversation. Baker's side of the story. In Tampa, Mayfield was in the middle of his own training camp grind. If he noticed the headlines, he didn't show it. The Buccaneers' PR team kept him focused on upcoming joint practices, and when a reporter vaguely asked about quarterbacks handling criticism differently, he offered only, "Everybody's wired differently. What works for one guy doesn't work for the next." No fireworks, no rebuttal, which ironically mirrored the kind of measured approach Palmer had just praised in Sanders.